Now we're going across the Hamilton's police station, and this is another direction to get to Techniques Order. And there's the People's Pharmacy on the right. Okay, now we're coming up on Victoria Street. Victoria Street and King Street. We're going to take a left onto King Street. Now we're right at the stop sign, King Street and Dundonald Street. And onto King Street. Now we turn right onto Curvin Avenue. And this is Techniques Order. Now I'm going to install the stud for the exhaust manifold. And remember, we repaired this in one of the earlier videos and we clear all the threading. So now I'm going to put in the stud, but if you notice, there's nothing for the spanner to fit. So I'm using 2 nuts. And I'm going to just use 2 spanner. And lock them together. Now we can use the spanner to turn it in. Or a socket. It don't really matter. Sometimes you have to just use the tool based on the clearance you might have. I want to just lock this nut a little bit. Okay, so the stud is locked, so we know the stud tightening good. Now I can back off the 2 nuts. And there it is. The stud is in, nice and firm. And I'll just repeat that process with all the studs. Now I'm putting in the final stud for the exhaust manifold. Okay, so all the studs are in for the exhaust, and most important, this one and this two has been repaired, and all of them is tightened properly. So now when we put the exhaust manifold on with the gasket, we won't have any leakage in this area like before. Now I'm going to do the opposite side, the intake side, put in all those studs. So this is the last stud I'm putting in for the intake. Okay, so all the intake manifold studs are in and they lock in pretty good. This is the completed cylinder head. It is assembled. All the studs has been repaired, tightened, valve grind, seals change. All tolerance is to the specification. Now it's ready to be installed on the engine block. I've installed some other parts in the back here. This is the new water pipe that was rusted away. So install a new one. I just use a little silicone on it just for giving some sealing. And that's the housing for the distributor. Plus this oil pipe is very important. You have to make sure this pipe, none of the oil gallery or passages is blocked, because this pipe is what lubricate the camshaft, lobe and the rocker arm. And it has some holes underneath there. You have to make sure they are clear. If any one of those holes is blocked, the camshaft will be damaged and possibly broken. So this is it for the cylinder head. We're going to take a break from the cylinder head, and now we're going to install the cylinder head. Before we install the cylinder head, gotta put in the dowels and check the new head gasket. Gotta check the new head gasket with the old head gasket. Oh, gumbies. Yes, this reminds me of the UWI band. Nice. Keep my concentration in the engine. And for all you guys might hear that sound, that's the Bermuda Gumby. Awesome. You gotta watch them live in action. Okay, the music make my thought go for a minute, so let me get my focus back and steady. So now I'm going to install the dowel. And a lot of mechanics put the cylinder head on without dowels. This is no good, because you need a dowel to keep it in line. Okay, so this is the final dowel here. And we want to just keep it flush and just tap it with a hammer. And this is going to keep the cylinder head gasket perfect in position. Now I got to slowly I want to make sure this gasket is cut but don't fall into the engine. Make sure there's no loose pieces. And again, in this ear, you want to use a touch of silicone. Now I'm just putting a smear of oil on the head for the insulation of the gasket, and you don't want to use too much. I'll just a touch too much, so I'm going to take some off. Then we want to do the same thing to the engine. Make one little error. I don't want no oil in this place. That's the gumbe. We should go and take a little bit put in the video. And I'm going to just bring the piston down a little bit from TDC. I'll put a final little smear of oil inside the cylinder. And what I've done, I'll just bring the piston down a little bit from TDC, because with this engine, touch of something here. With this engine here, the camshaft already installed in the cylinder head, and if the timing is off a few degrees, we don't want it, the valve and the piston touching while we're tightening the head. Sorry, normally when I'm doing this job, this type of job, I don't do much talking, and this is the type of work, I would encourage you have to concentrate. So most time I actually do this work in the evening and the night when the garage quiet, everybody gone, nobody calling you, because any form of distraction can make you forget to do something or forget to check something or forget to tighten something, and that can cause a problem. So you need 100% concentration when you're building an engine. So for me it's a little bit challenging building the engine and talking, because I generally don't do that. And our new parts is almost finished, and I'm just taking the gasket, cylinder head gasket out. And that's the new gasket there. Okay, so I'm just where the front cover joined to the engine block, I'm just putting a very, very small amount of silicone there, just to prevent any form of leakage. It's not a must, but you can, I see cases where you fit the engine up and it may leak through that area. And remember, this engine is not a racing engine. We're building this engine for durability and back to the factory spec. So the engine almost finished, fit up. These guys smiling at my silicone in the YouTube. But we haven't touched the new one yet. And we're still squeezing a little bit out of it. It's almost flat, but not completely flat. Okay, so now I'm going to install the head gasket, but if you notice, I have the whole gasket here. And we actually save all the old gaskets and parts from the engine for different reasons. For the head gasket, the main reason why we save it, we want to make sure that the new gasket is exactly the same. So we just clean it up a bit, and we're going to just put it on top of the gasket. And we want to make sure that it's actually the exact gasket, because even though we know it's the right engine code and everything, I see many times where the gasket is different in some important areas. And so far this looks good, but I'm going to do it the opposite way now. We have cases where sometimes this ring here just a couple millimeter different, and it causes a huge problem and many different things. So this gasket is exactly the same. So we'll just clean it up, make sure nothing on it, and it already have some factory lubricant on it. And we're not going to use any silicone in this gasket. So we'll finish with this one here. This day is over. And even though the gasket is the same, we still want to make sure all this copper ring is okay when we put it on the block. We're double checking and triple checking and everything. So now I do a few quick checks without saying a thing. And one of the checks I've done is making sure, even though it looked good there, you still double check again up here, just to make sure it's actually fitting good in the cylinder and not no form of hanging over. So it's just another safety precaution. And all the oil ports, water jacket, everything lined up straight. So we're good to go. So now I'm going to put the cylinder head on. Before I put the head on, I'm going to use 4 bolts. Just as a guide to keep it even while it's going on. And remember, with the cylinder head bolt, you have to clean them properly and keep the threading dry, and we won't use any thread lock on these here. And these bolt is the same standard bolt we're using back. It's not every time you remove a cylinder head, you have to change the bolt. You know, it's just depends how much time the head has been removed, how much time it has been torqued, and so on. Also, it's not a engine that, you know, we're trying to build 600 or 400 horsepower. So we need to use some specialized bolt to take that amount of horsepower. So the stock bolts is fine. The only difference, in some case, because the bolt may stretch a bit, you might have to put an extra foot-pound of torque on it. Not too much, you know, just up it slightly, whatever the specs is. So now I'm going to put the head on. And I'm using my bolts as a guide. Good. So it's on, nice and firm. And here I have an old-fashioned speed angle and a regular torque impact socket. And the reason I'm using this speed angle, it will allow me to just run down the bolts to a nice tighten, but not tight where it's going to change anything regarding the torque. So I don't want to use a ratchet angle here or a breaker bar or an impact gun. The speed angle is perfect for this part. And we're starting in the middle as usual. And notice when the bolt finish going in, I take it off and I just bring the angle on a, bring the speed angle on a particular angle, and then I just pull it a little bit, and that's it. Okay, so the head is on. I'm going to torque it. So now I'm just looking for the torque, the cylinder head bolt torque specification, torque wrench setting, and this here, this is a torque wrench. I showed earlier, this is what we use to tighten the bolt at specific measurement based on what the manufacturer recommend. If it's a racing engine, we'll determine how much tighten we want it to be, because you know every race engine builder have their own method of building more horsepower. But anyway, this is a torque wrench. You have many different type of torque wrench, but this is one of the standard one that used in the industry. You have the digital point wrench and so on. So I'm looking for the cylinder head specs, and this is where there is a difference again with between the dealer, the mechanic who train in a dealer and work on one or two models, brand vehicle, compare with another mechanic that work on a whole variety of vehicle. If you only work on one vehicle or you know two brand, generally you know these numbers in your head. But if you use another mechanic that working on a whole variety of engines and brand, it's difficult for you to remember every single one of these numbers and specification and so on. So that's why it's important to always, you know, have the manual so you can get the correct measurement. So I'm just looking for the cylinder head bolt torque here. So I'm setting the torque wrench setting now. And I'm going to give it a 3-stage torque. And the reason I'm doing that because you don't want to just give it the complete amount of torquage and then the bolts break or the threading stretch or rip. So I'm going to give it a stage 1, which is about 35 or 34 foot-pound, and then I'm going to give it a stage 2, which is about 45, and then I will wait for 20 minutes, and then I give it a stage 3, which will bring the torque up to 57, 59, depending on how the bolt feel. But I would prefer for it to go up to 60, just to give it just a touch for that stretch, because they are used cylinder head bolts and normally they stretch a bit, but you have to have the experience to feel it and know, you know, this bolt don't take the chance and go up to 60. So we'll keep it right at the 59, between say 59, and we'll feel it and see how it feels at that point. And I'm starting from a distance where I can keep going until the wrench click. I don't want to stop in between because that's going to change the reading. And you want to stop soon as it clicks.